As promised, pre-K, top of the order. Yesterday, we had our pre-K lottery drawing for the 57 students that completed the pre-K registration process by the close of business last Thursday, February 29th. So today, we were able to email those 57 families their lottery number and some information about where we are in the process of planning pre-K for 24-25. Some of the information the email included is status on the lease and the New York State OCFS, Office of Family and Child Services, which is the state agency that approves sites that have non-school age students. So we continue to be very hopeful that Holy Rosary and Hawthorne will be the site for the 24-25 pre-K program. The YMCA is continuing to build and work on their lease with the Archdiocese in order to be able to lease the Holy Rosary site. And the New York State Office of Family and Child Services has to come out and do a site visit to Holy Rosary and provide state approval for that site. If approved, Holy Rosary will be the site for both Pleasantville and Mount Pleasant pre-K. I think just that alone, there's a lot riding on the Holy Rosary piece. They're making good headway with their lease, and they are working with OCFS to schedule that date. So we are very hopeful that that will be the case. The frustrating part is about when, right? When can we definitively say? I know that our families are very anxious to know when that is going to happen, that we can deliver with some certainty, and I assure you, so are we. We work on pre-K all the time. In the unlikely chance that Holy Rosary does not receive state approval, we definitively have 2 classes at 16 kids per class where we currently are at Holy Name of Jesus and Valhalla, and potentially a 3rd class there. So I think that's really important. So just a little bit of a reminder about how pre-K works. It's a combined state and federal grant that allocates Pleasantville, that we're able to provide pre-K for up to 76 students for 180 days at 5 hours a day. That is our grant. Regardless of the site, our contract with the YMCA requires us to have full classes of 16 students. The fact that if we would be at Holy Rosary, we would be able to combine if needed, if we were short and they were short, with Mount Pleasant, or they could have tuition-paying students that are coming in. So it's very confusing with the mathematics around it, with 180 days, 5 hours a day. There's a certain allocation, but depending upon our contract, will depend on how we can use that allocation, and then also the waiting game of the 2 contingencies. So it's not always easy to kind of translate, especially when you have other commitments, which we recognize our families do, in terms of to other daycare, where you're holding kind of spots in 2 places. So we are, as a district, committed to providing this important program to our as many district students as possible. So moving forward, we have open registration. Any additional registrations that are completed will be assigned a number starting with 58. And so I ask the community and the board to please ensure your neighbors with pre-K age children are aware that registration will continue. Just a little history. Right now we have 1 class at Holy Name. We had 20 people register for the program. We did a lottery for the 20, and we used everyone because we offered it to the first 16, and then for different reasons, different people didn't use it, so we went up to 20. So I just, the numbers can be a little bit deceiving in terms of then how they are applied programmatically. So I think that's some important information for the community to know and understand about pre-K.
So, can I ask one question about
yes,
Dr. Sa?
I hope I have an answer.
I know that you do. Which is just, so the big difference really between the Valhalla site and the Hawthorne site is size, right? That the Hawthorne site would be able to accommodate more classes.
The Hawthorne site
it's obviously closer, and people will be excited about that. But
think about it, Erin. Right now, at Holy Name of Jesus, we only are operating one class, but there's what, 3 other districts there?
Yeah.
There's 3 other districts there that have classes. So overall, that site is operating.
Right.
But what we have access to for 24-25 is definitively 2 classes there and potentially a 3rd.
Right.
So if we can go over to Holy Rosary, you know, the math is if you take 76, because you could know I've done this already, 76 divided by 16 is 4.75. So you're almost at 5 classes. So if we were running at capacity, if we had 76 registrants and all of them wanted to come, we would still need a quarter of a class. So you know, there's a little bit of application. So yes, and you know, some other background information for the different sites and the programs and what that's going to look like with Mount Pleasant, how many of their seats they have, how many of them they're going to fill, how they group up to 16 is all going to kind of play into the math behind what we can do and how we can do it.
Wow.
And the resources that come to Pleasantville for UPK are use it or lose it, right? Like if we,
They are.
Yes.
right, so
They
it's not as though if we don't fill the class, there's money that's being held
So
here.
there's a little history behind that, because what they actually did was they carved out a part of the foundation aid.
Right.
And they basically said, you can only use this part of the foundation aid for X.
Right.
And it was never, I mean, how long, it's been going on for several years
It's
now.
been going
Over
on
10
for
years.
several years,
Yeah.
and different districts have come on. So obviously, you know, most things, they start with a pilot. So it started off as a pilot, so a couple of districts got in early on.
Yep.
Some questions that have come in from the community are like, why is this one doing that one? Why is that one doing this one? It's all about when you came into your funding. This is the grant that we have access to. This is the grant that we are allocated. This is the RFP that we put out, and that's what YMCA responded to. So right now, we have a nonprofit that for the first time in 3 years that we've been together and doing this, that we actually had somebody bid on it. It for you know, for regional costs for daycare, what the grant provides is barely covering costs, which is why YMCA runs at capacity. It would never, they are a non-for-profit, but they would be like whatever less than a non-for-profit is.
red.
If they were running a class, you know, with the allocation that we have per student, with 4 or 5 students. So, you know, it gets a little tricky. It's not always easy to understand, and when you do, it's not easy to not have answers or to not like the answers, quite frankly, for just the way the structure is. It has been something that's been a source of advocacy. I remember meeting with one of our former community members who was in legislation, and I was basically asking at that time, because of the regional cost adjustment, to say, let the district have that money to do other things to support, like pre-K like things. We have an amazing library. You know, like I was trying to be creative and different things, but it wasn't an option,
No,
and it's still
there's no
not an
flexibility.
option.
That's
It's per head per student.
Right.
That's all you
Flexibility.
get, and anything over that, the district is supporting the pre-K through our budget. We bought materials and resources and curriculum for the class this year, and depending upon how much we run next year, we will do that as well.
And we don't have the space. Some school districts, because of low enrollment, they have the rooms within their building, and that's why some of them have been able to do the pre-K earlier, because they have the space. We don't have any extra space, so that makes it that much more complicated.
And we've sent out RFPs every year
Yeah.
and never gotten
No, I know.
a single response. This
No.
was the first year to get an actual response.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the second thing that I wanted to speak a little bit about was the tech committee. Our district tech committee held its 4th meeting of the 23-24 school year this past Wednesday. Updates on projects in both technology and instructional technology were shared. Time was then devoted to reviewing draft generative AI guidance documents for both teachers and students. The district continues to be a leader throughout the region and state in our efforts to codify and institute a comprehensive support and implementation plan around generative AI. The committee, with participation from our trustee, Lucas Cascardo, is playing an active advisory role in shaping our stakeholder-infused efforts, providing feedback, and sharing recommendations on how to best support our entire community. In fact, Dr. Fajo and I are panelists on an upcoming Westchester Putnam School Boards Association webinar to share our implementation efforts around this area. So we are looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to
Yes.
be away. I'm going to miss it.
Okay. Lucas, anything that you wanted to share? Alice, I think you were on the teacher,
I was on the teacher side.
I
yeah.
was with a student, on the student, and we're working, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it was, it's quite fantastic, the programs and how those are going to be implemented in a classroom setting.
What are they going to
And
do?
It's just, it offers the students sort of like, when the student interfaces with the program, it really learns sort of what they know, what they don't know. It guides them somewhat, but doesn't give them the answer. It's not like Google, you put in, you ask a question, it spits out an answer. But it sort of guides the students through this learning process. And I'm excited to see how it's going to transform like the learning environment in classrooms from like middle school and high school.
Interesting. The SAT is doing that. Did you read that? The SAT is going to be online. It's going to be computer-based. And as you're answering questions, the test will get harder. We'll give you more complicated questions.
Okay.
Look at your face. You're like,
They
what?
they do that with
Sounds horrible.
different tests now.
Yeah.
That different districts use, like we use iReady. There's different models with online tests.
So it'll like monitor as you go, so that some of the next, like question 20 might be a little bit more challenging based on how you've answered the other questions.
Okay. Moving on past technology, I wanted to provide an update on the middle school HVAC project.
Oh, good.
It continues to be an on time and on budget, which we just love to say, project. Both the mechanical and the electrical contractors were there all week over winter break, and they made a lot of progress when the building was shut down. The plan is for both contractors and the roofing contractor, if you recall, we're doing the roof restoration. They are going to be there over the spring break and hopefully be able to accomplish that, weather dependent. So let's hope for no rain so that they can do that roofing project over the spring break. Another interesting topic that I thought the board and the community would like to know about is we've worked with the county on space availability for the next 3 elections. One of which is really important is the night of the middle school graduation. I think I've said this at 10 board meetings, but I'll keep saying it because I don't think people are going to realize it until it's here. Our last 3 days of school are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The BRS graduation is Monday night. The middle school graduation is Tuesday night, and the high school graduation is Wednesday night. That Tuesday night of the middle school graduation is the primary election. And so when we worked with the county, their wish was to have one polling site for all 3 so that the community doesn't get confused on where to go for voting. So the only option that we have for them that's consistent across the 3 is the BRS gym. So that is going to be the location, and we recognize, and we have pointed out to them, that parking during the day is going to be a challenge for voters. We have reconciled this. This is what they want. I think the community at some point is going to, like, they're not going to be happy about this, but I'm putting out there, like, the decision-making process, the constraints of it. We offer different sites, with really BRS being that night of the middle school graduation. We can't not afford not to have parking here. When we have, the BRS and the middle school are at the high school auditorium for graduation planned, and then the high school, goes indoor or outdoor, but those parking spots are invaluable on those days. So that's the story on parking and BRS and the gym
So what
Um,
you're
and
saying
voting.
is you really didn't have a choice.
Because we really didn't have a choice. We worked with what we had, that's what we can offer. They came out to the site, the principals and John met with them, they looked at the areas, and that's what they wanted, and that's what we could give. So that's the situation. And Mr. Bush tried to steal my thunder about the high school play, which is my last announcement. Opening night, Friday night, very exciting. Hope to see you all there. That is the conclusion of my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.